Yeah, thanks for having me. It was all great news for me when some friends of mine started this planning for this event. Probably started on the first slide, right? So I might be the one person, let's see, with the shortest journey here. So even shorter than you, Sebastian, because
Just forwarded the link and say have fun.
no, sorry. How I got here, like in the morning. It was like a 20-minute ride on a commuter train. So it's great to to be here. Yeah, and well, Red Hat is sponsoring Keycloak's project here and there, but then in the end, it's a community effort. It's now also part of the CNCF. So it's really a community thing, and thank you for all the contributions, all the people who test Keycloak in their production environment for us. Yeah, thank you for that. So my keynote is about what's next in Keycloak, the open source identity and access management, and I'm Alexander Schwartz, so just Alex. I have the honor to work full-time on the Keycloak open source project for the last 2 years now. I've been using Keycloak for many other years before, like making customers happy when I was in IT consulting, which was fun. But then when there was the opportunity to do it full-time, I grabbed it. So what is identity access management, and do I need one? Probably most of you will say, yes, you need one. But then as it's the first talk, let's give a very, very short introduction. So it's all about, we have users, we have devices here, and you want to, well, log in of some kind, being it credentials, username, password, second factors, Kerberos, whatever, you name it. Somehow we want to know who's then there at the other end, being it a human or a machine, and then those devices, browsers, whatever, want to access some services in the cloud or on premises, and then we have these tokens around, either for LDAP or tokens for SAML tokens or OIDC tokens, and then the application can verify the token. Well, that's the basic setup. That's what authentication is all about. Authorization works as well. That's what we claim, at least. We will probably see here in the talks also other opportunities to put other tools in here, like maybe SpiceDB or OPA. But let's see. So a Keycloak journey, at least that's how it started for me. It usually starts very small. You have day one of Keycloak is single sign-on is cool. It just works, which is nice. Then you want to be more flexible in your setup. And then day 3, you then eliminate the daily churn. And let's see how such a Keycloak journey looks like. So like the cool thing is users need to remember only a single password for all the applications where they log in. And you authenticate only once a day, or maybe once a week, or maybe even once a month. That's depending on your security policies. And then you can add second factors as needed. Maybe some applications need it, some don't. So all this single sign-on, having an application that takes care of all that, it's nice, and you can focus on other stuff. To do these things right, when you go to the OWASP pages, and they describe a cheat sheet, but it's more like a pile of paper describing how to do it right. I hope that Keycloak does most of these things right. We are also already improving in every release to get it right. And on a day 1 Keycloak installation, you always probably change the theme of Keycloak. You put in your company logo so that all your employees or your customers recognize that they're on the right page, right? So I'd say it makes sense to deploy Keycloak even if you're a single application using this OpenID Connect, SAML, whatever you choose in your application to authenticate your users, your partners, your customers, whoever is there. And that's day 1 of Keycloak. And yeah, that's first contact. All familiar with that one? Put in username and password. And then day 2 of Keycloak is usually you want to be more flexible in your setup. You want to integrate something. It's maybe an existing LDAP, maybe an existing Kerberos. When it comes to your employees, you want to sign in maybe without a password, or entering another password. You want to do brokerage, maybe with existing SAML services and OIDC services. You could argue, well, if you have an existing SAML service, you can translate it to OIDC. Even if there is an existing OIDC service, maybe you don't want to use it in your application because you don't like their tokens for whatever reasons. They don't have the right data in their tokens, they have the wrong user endpoint, so it's always great to put Keycloak in the middle to do the things you need. Some people integrate it with a custom store. Maybe they have a user database somewhere with user details, maybe even with credentials, and then you can connect Keycloak to those as well. Some do SCIM integration, so there was a great talk at FOSDEM in the Identity and Access Management Dev Room. They detailed a bit more about the current state of the SCIM integration using Keycloak. And so the thing is, yeah, reuse your existing user infrastructure or security infrastructure in general. So as I said, brokerage connected to Keycloak, you choose it. I think in one of the recent releases, you can have now multiple Kerberoses. You can connect to a single realm if you choose to do so. If you have Kerberos, well, you don't have a login page, so people might not actually see Keycloak when they logged in using Kerberos already. Only if there's no Kerberos authentication in place, you will then have a backup mechanism where you choose maybe to enter your password or something else. And then you have other providers you can choose as well. User Federation, LDAP User Store, I talked about that as well. And then there's day 3 of Keycloak. You want to eliminate churn. So it's like user required actions. You can send out emails to users, please activate your second factor, please activate it. But then you can put in a required action to say, yes, next time you log in, you will have second factor, no matter what. So all these automation that is in there, required actions, I saw people doing fancy things with it, things we didn't intend people to use it with, but that's fine. It's open source and it's there to be banded the way you need it. User password recovery, even if you're using LDAP, you can use Keycloak to recover an LDAP password. So how cool is that? Self-registration for users. I will show an example of that later. Also user data self-management with a declarative user profile in Keycloak 24. It's no longer going to be preview, and we think we now got it right and feature complete. So let's see in a demo if you agree with me or not. So if you have like the required actions, password recovery, self-registration, data self-management, it really takes some tickets, some calls away because people can help themselves, can manage their own data, which is nice. So, and then once you enable those, like this forgot password and the new user, those links then appear on the login screen. It's just a toggle button that you need to switch. And then this is a summary. Keycloak is an open source IAM solution for authentication to integrate with your existing infrastructure and to extend and to customize it as needed. And the nice thing, it runs both within containers and outside of containers, within Kubernetes, outside of Kubernetes. It's really your choice where you want to run it. So there's also a book, this Keycloak 2nd edition. I have one piece of this book with me. So yeah, if you want to have a look at the book, it want to be around the tables back there, and we probably do a giveaway at the end of the conference today. I also have stickers with me, postcards. So if you have a friend around or at home, you can write them a postcard and put them into this box. I'll put on the stamps and let's surprise some friends, some co-workers. Right. But then, okay, so I used 10 minutes to talk about Keycloak. Let's go for the highlights of Keycloak 24, as least as they are planned for as of today. So if you look at GitHub, well, I've been asked about that. The milestone says February 28th to be the release date. Let's say I'm quite sure we're going to be quite close to that date. Maybe not that date, but quite close. All right. So the good thing is passkey support is evolving. So in Keycloak 23, you were always able to use passkey support. And Nico showed some great demos about passkey in another meetup. I was happy to join. And I think the next change will hopefully make it for 24. Takashi from Hitachi is doing great work there. That will have even better support there. Load shedding and non-blocking probes. So how to run Keycloak under high load and how Keycloak can then react to load spikes. I will show a bit about that later. We have multi-site support with blueprints. We're quite definitely sure that this is going to be part of Keycloak 24, no longer being preview, but being fully supported. We have a sizing guide here telling you how much memory, how much CPU you need for a given Keycloak installation, giving some key numbers. It's going to be running on Quarkus 3.8. User profile is going to be enabled by default. We'll see that in a minute. And we have simplified trust store handling. So when you ever were in a situation when you prepare the key store for Keycloak, like putting in some PEMs, some DR, whatever stuff in a JKS, whatever that is. The good news is you can have a folder where you put in all the key material, or for the trust store at least, that one. Keycloak will read it at startup and do the thing. It makes it a lot simpler for cloud environments. The cloud native team at Keycloak did a lot of work and put a lot of work into that. So it's really a command line options. Here are my certificates I trust. Be done with it. So that's, I hope, a great simplification of users running Keycloak in both cloud and non-cloud environments. Right, and there are lots of other changes in there. Yeah, something I didn't put in here. So the container, we hand out containers of Keycloak, and you can download them and run them. And when you run those, they will then, in the next Keycloak 24 release, honor the limits you add to the container. So you no longer need to specify memory limits. It will be part of the sizing guide, but if you're running Keycloak in a container, this will be a big change to you that you probably want to read the release notes about it. Also, Open API going to be preview starting from next release. We had great contributions for Sophie from others, so it's now really a preview feature that you can, as part of the Keycloak distribution, actually download the Open API specification. Yeah. So the question was the change for Quarkus 3.8, if you can run it on JDK 21. We did some first tests and we saw that we need to tweak some things in the build. So we didn't run our tests yet on 21. So it's going to be 17 still, even though it's going to be 3.8. Quarkus 3.8 is also coming out end of February-ish. So it might be something we would be waiting for. So it's definitely going to be Quarkus 3.8. That's the plan around this. And yeah, you mark this asterisk. If you can't read it, that's subject to change, well, as usual. Okay, but then let's talk about some of the more bold stuff here, because those things I've been testing with, I've been playing with around. So load shedding. Well, my definition of load shedding is something should well behave even if the system receives more requests than it can handle. I'm not sure how many people tested that with previous releases of Keycloak. How did Keycloak react to that much load? Did it restart maybe? Yeah, so in older releases, we had incoming requests. They would usually queue up. You would have a delayed response and the client requests timeout, which is bad. The new behavior, like with Keycloak 24, is you can have a limit of the requests queued, that you can have a fail fast for excessive requests, which is the first way of load shedding, right? So your pod or your container, your Keycloak instance will survive the load, and once the load goes down, it will continue to work. It's not like it's going over an edge where it just not respond at all, and even if the load is gone, might be just restarting. Also the liveness probe. There's now a liveness probe that is non-blocking. So even if a lot of requests queuing up, this liveness probe will still respond. This pod is still okay. You don't, Kubernetes, you don't need to restart this pod, even if it can't respond to other requests at the moment. But this is fine. Please don't kill me. So this is a liveness probe in Keycloak 23 and Keycloak 24. So actually, I was very persuasive to some people at the Quarkus. So in Keycloak 23, it's a custom build thing. In Keycloak 24, we persuaded the people at Quarkus to enhance Quarkus in this way that you can have in Quarkus non-blocking probes at all. Anyway, side story. maybe a side story over coffee. So multi-site support. It's also going to be no longer preview in the community. That's our plan for 24. So you can have a browser that then connects to a load balancer. The load balancer sends all the requests to an active site where there's Keycloak and external InfiniSpan, and all the data is written to a synchronously replicated database. It could be like an Aurora Postgres database running on Azure. Maybe a Galera cluster would work as well. We didn't test that yet, but that's the first setup we're doing. And once this first site, the primary site, fails, it will switch to the secondary site. And we had an HI guide already for Keycloak 23. If you look through that, you would find that there were some kind of Quarkus options you need to set here, some unsupported pod template, lengthy descriptions. Also some InfiniSpan XML that you needed to tweak. For Keycloak 24, we're at the point where all these options that we needed are now fully supported options. You don't need to add things to the pod template anymore. And if we are lucky and get everything in, we might get to a point where we not even need to touch the InfiniSpan XML for that. So that's our goal for that. As I said, you need a synchronous database or master-master database between the two data centers and a low latency network, usually running in one AWS region with two AZs. That's what we tested and load tested for this. Right. Hopefully we're going to do active soon, but for now it's active passive. But when we did all this effort here around multi-site support, those improvements we did there, they're not only for multi-site support. I think every user of Keycloak hopefully benefits from the things we've done there. We have now the sizing guide where we describe how much memory you need, how much CPU, how you should configure threads in a Keycloak environment. The simplified configuration I talked about earlier about the external InfiniSpan setup. We have automated load and failure tests. So all the testing we're doing is in a separate GitHub repository called Keycloak Benchmark. And it's very, very modular, I'd say. At least you have to decide for yourself if it's really that modular. But then you will have components how to deploy Keycloak in an environment. You have scripts to generate data for your load tests, like that many hundreds, thousands of users, that many hundreds, thousands of clients, you name it. Then you have load drivers. You will have a metric stack in there. And yeah, all the things you need to really figure out if that's working, and also some small chaos scripts that then restart a Keycloak pod here and there, and then that you can figure out if Keycloak is recovering even under load. The protection against cache stampedes improved. So something we found when you try to restart a pod under high load. In the past, Keycloak wasn't performing that well. So that's also better even for Keycloak 23, but a little bit better even for 24. So cache stampede is being like, imagine you have 100 requests going into a freshly started instance of Keycloak, and the realm hasn't been loaded from the database, and the clients haven't been loaded into from the database into the cache. This would usually have a cache stampede that all the threads are trying to do something in parallel, reading things from a database. This is no longer happening. So it's read once from a database, and all the other threads will use that data immediately. So it behaves a lot better restarting Keycloak under high load. We're about to have AWS Aurora Postgres multi-AZ support, fully supported. So we're also running our nightly tests on that database. Well, let's see how priorities are in the upcoming weeks and months, what other cloud databases we're adding to our test suite. But we now have the confidence that all the tests that we have run every night on that kind of database. And we did a lot of InfiniSpan and J groups hardening by doing all our tests, both on the load and with chaos tests. Questions around that? I'm happy to take questions in between. Oh, okay. Well, please give it a try. You can download all these features in the Keycloak nightly build already. And yeah, give it a try and let us know if anything's broken so we can fix it before we release 24. So declarative user profile. I'm not sure who has tried out this declarative user profile before. All right, I see maybe 30% of the room. All right, who's using it in production? Ah, cool, nice. Maybe half the people. Okay, so maybe I should say what it is. Or so the idea is in Keycloak 23, it was a preview feature. You need to enable a feature flag when you start Keycloak, and then you need to enable it for Realm. But now it's there all the time. You will have in the Realm configuration. Okay, I cut it off. Like you choose user profile tab at the very right somewhere. That's not shown here, and then you have the attributes you can configure, and it will come out of the box with these 4 attributes: username, email, first name, last name. And you can go down to each single field and configure how this field should look like. Who can edit this field? Who can view that field? And that's really cool. Plus, we're about to support user attributes longer than 255 characters. Whoever tried that before and failed? Okay, yeah. We heard you finally. Hopefully we have another solution in place that you can actually now store pictures in there if you want to, so that's going to be supported as well. But then be careful, it might blow up your caches in Keycloak, because if you have really long data and then reload it into memory and cache it, but then you need to maybe tweak your caches a bit that you don't, yeah, anyway. We will see in a minute. And the good news is all this information I put in here, it's both in the admin UI, it's also when people register, and when people use the account console. It's using all the same information here, and I think it's now a great time to do a demo. So I have here Keycloak up and running, and I've been logged out. Yeah. And this is the nightly build of Keycloak. And if I now switch here to user profile, you see here these 4 attributes that there are. And if I now choose to add a new field here, I create a new attribute called foo. I can give it a name, my foo. You can actually localize it, but I forgot how to do it. You can put it to a attribute group. Let's not talk about that so much, but I could say this is enabled when a special profile is requested. Only then this attribute should be there. So depending on the client and what they're trying to do, this field might be there or not. You can make it a required field for both users and admins, only users, only admins. It's only required on a special scope, so it then offers progressive profiling. Depending on which application the user accesses, you might need additional data. Once they try to access this application, this form comes up. They need to put in the data, and then only then they can access the application. You can have the permissions here, who's then viewing, who's editing this field. You can add validators about it's a valid email, date, person name, prohibited characters, ID and homographs, so usernames might be what usually prohibited characters in usernames, so some predefined validators here. And here it's in annotations, but then you can, when you see what annotations you can do here, you see that some UI person was in there, so it was definitely not me. So they were talking about helper text above the input field, helper text under the input field, input placeholder, input size, columns, rows, input step size. It's all not me. So I'm only what's an input type maybe. And even if you go in here, you will have lots of HTML5. So the front-end people really love that. So it's really, think of it as a form designer. And when you're looking at also length, and well, yeah, you can do really nice forms here. And let's see. So I create this new field, make it required. Okay, let's skip that. A value must be provided. Input type, text. Yeah. And for example, this is now my login screen, right? So I go to my Realm settings and I enable user registration. Now user registration is enabled. I go to the register and okay, let's see, where is my... Thank you. All right. So go back to user profile. Have it full. It's a required field. You can edit it. You can view it. I don't know. Let's see. And here's my foo field, right? And this is, again, it's the same form with different validation. Well, as if you want to have it same for users and admins and registration and stuff, then it's the same. If you want to have it different, it's different. So who's no more inclined to use it compared to before? Nobody wants to use it. Okay, so I ask again, who wants to use user profiles more than before? Oh, thank you. So I will carry that forward to those who put a lot of work in that. Yeah, actually, well, that's a good point. You have to use it. Yes, it's in there all the time. And if you create new configurations, you will have unmanaged attributes disabled. If you upgrade from a version, if you upgrade on Realm from one Keycloak version to another, I think the current default in Nightly is that that unmanaged attributes are enabled, so that you are not locked out, but that it works like similar as before. But we really encourage you to maybe go to only administrators can write or view unmanaged attributes. So unmanaged attributes are the attributes in Keycloak that have not been defined in the user profile. So the best practice is really go in there, maybe even with Keycloak 23 already, and start configuring all your attributes. Or maybe once you upgrade it, quite soon go in there and all the attributes, decide who should be able to edit them, who should be able to view them, which should be hidden from both admins and users, which should be available only to the extensions you've been written for Keycloak. So yeah, that's my take on user attributes. And it makes, I think it improves the user experience with Keycloak quite a lot, and makes it also, yeah, probably more secure if you've done it right. Yeah, so these are the highlights I wanted to point out. Any questions around other points in here? Gareth? Oh yeah, I didn't talk about that one. Extending the admin UI with an SPI. Yeah, so if you go, well, the UIs are all React. I'm a Java person, so I'm kind of out of the game anyway. I've done it, yeah. So there's now an SPI in Keycloak 24 where you can extend the admin UI using Java code. So at least if we go to the quick starts today, I have the link at the last slide. There's an SPI for adding new tabs to the admin console for the Realm, I believe, and also new pages to the admin UI by using Java code. I think the documentation is a bit minimal. Yeah, so, but then give it a try, ask a lot of questions, and then documentation will approve. And I know that people have been working even to do more. Yeah, I saw some demos to extend for those people who are more into JavaScript, to make it simpler to extend the UIs. Let's see if that comes with 24 or maybe in a later release. But we hear you. We hear you that you want to extend the admin UIs and also the account UIs of Keycloak. I think we're going to see something around that soonish. Any additional questions? I don't explain what soonish going to be. Okay, Thomas is asking about how to define an internal only attribute. Well, it depends on how you access it. If you access it using an SPI, then you don't need to define it. If you send in data using the admin or the REST interfaces, then you need to define it. But then it's always a good practice to define them. Yeah.
We have a question from the internet. Do you hear me? Yeah. When deployed on K8s, that LB will be from the K8 infra, or Keycloak offer its LB when running in K8s?
All right, so the question, who's then offering this load balancer? If you're running in Kubernetes, you will have a load balancer within a Kubernetes setup. But if you would go back to this diagram here, actually this primary side and secondary sides, they will be different, like separate Kubernetes installations, separate OpenShift installations. So there's going to be, they hopefully, if you want to really make it separate sites, they will not share the same Kubernetes cluster. And so this load balancer will be outside of Kubernetes. And in our blueprints, we used a Route 53 based load balancer for AWS. You're happy to bring your own, so we will not deploy it for you. You just need to configure it. And as a blueprint, we provided a Route 53 router setup. Yeah. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. Please ask other questions on the chat. There is even another one. So, are there any actual plans for 24/7 during updates?
Yeah, okay, that gives me to one of my next slides. I might need to hurry up a bit anyway. My future wishes, so that's probably one of my future wishes. A translation tool for the UIs. So at the moment, if somebody contributed translations in the past, we have these message bundles where you do pull requests and stuff, which is, I'd say, developer-centric, to put it politely. And there are tools like Weblate, and I put some time aside last year to get a proof of concept up and running. But I feel already with all the other things you'll see on the next slide on my plate, I won't have time to do that this year. So if anybody's in the room who would like to lead a translation project of Keycloak, please approach me, and I will pass on some credentials. So the thing is, Weblate will provide a UI where you see which strings of the account console, of the admin UI, of the login API UI will have been translated to what languages. You will review who has then permissions to contribute translations, and then it will, in the end, create pull requests, and then it needs only a maintainer to approve the pull request. But then it needs some love, probably explaining to people, also onboarding people, and do the human part of all that. So I would really looking forward if somebody could pick that up. Please approach me during the day. And well, my thing that I will probably have on my agenda for the rest of the year is then better operational or operations UX for Keycloak. And so make it secure by default, or even more secure by default as it is today. When we came out with the sizing guide, and we have numbers in there, like how many concurrent sessions do you have, how many logins per second do you have, how many refresh tokens are you refreshing every second. Those are essential bits for the sizing guide, but we don't provide these metrics at Keycloak, so that's a bit bad. So we wanted to get better metrics for service level objectives and also for the sizing guide. This 24/7 upgrades, I'd say seamless upgrades, and it's going to be a journey. But we definitely want to get better in 2024 with that. Also cache consistency. If you have like split brains in some places, things coming together again after the split brain, we also want to get better at this. So I'm really looking forward to your feedback and ideas around this today. So I'm here, I'm going to be making notes. And also both the wishes and also the use cases where you want to apply these things. And the better the use cases, I'd say the more time I will get to work on this. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So these are all the links. This is the QR code to the slides. With Keycloak, the 90 build of Keycloak, the Keycloak book, 2nd edition, the Keycloak High Availability Guide. The guide you see there today is the one for 23. Once 24 is out, it will update with the very latest configurations. That's hopefully a lot simplified. For the very recent docs, you will need to go to the Git repository and have a look at this yourself. Extending the admin UI via the SPI, there's a quick start that I linked here as well. And something that's also on my plan for this year, a Keycloak Hour of Code meetup, where we meet like maybe every other week, maybe once a month, to discuss maybe the latest bits and pieces, what happened in Keycloak, development, how to contribute. Let's see if that's happening. All right, so that's it. Thanks for attending.